We're ready to go. Hey, thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. My name's Tim Stevens, Global Leader of Strategic Innovation, Media and Entertainment with Verizon. And joining me today, Mike Davies, Executive Vice President, Sports and Television Production.
And Chief Scapegoat
as well. And a prankster with microphones, so that's why we're sitting so far apart. It does look like we're going to do the news, but I've just been informed it's just going to be sports. So we're going to talk a little bit about today, the impact of private wireless networks in broadcast operations, especially for live sports. Mike and his team over at Fox, they've been an incredible in terms of being leading, I would say really leading the field in terms of the opportunities that you can create with some of the different workflows. I know Mike has a vision of where this is all taking us. I know I certainly do. I'm excited to have you here with us for, to have the kind of this open discussion. We're going to talk for a little bit and then, we're going to open it up for Q&A, out to everybody. So, let's kick it off.
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, I did want to start, I'll lay the groundwork in a minute about what private wireless network really does, but the amount of events today that you guys coverage is pretty massive. Tell me a little bit just about scope.
So the scope, Fox does a couple, thousand events, a year. We're actually we kind of operate like a big small business, right? Like ESPN is out there. They've got a lot more programming than we do. But, 70% of those events, of those 2,000 events, are done in some kind of distributed model. And what that means is that they're done in another way than bringing a crew and a truck out there. There may be a crew and a truck there, but a lot of what we do is actually done in Los Angeles and in our place in Charlotte. So that's kind of the scope, and it all goes through. Talk about tiers. Tier 1, your big NFL events. Tier 2, regular season baseball, things like that. And tier 3, maybe your college basketball, spring sports, things like that. Run the gamut.
So let's jump right into the private network piece of it, right? So the promise of 5G, I feel is pretty close at this point, right? We're starting to do a lot more on the edge compute platforms. We're seeing different workflows. But there's been kind of this on-site of growth inside of private wireless networks, and you guys have adopted it pretty quickly. Tell us a little bit about the why. Let's start there.
Well, mostly because of necessity. I mean, we're getting crunched, all over the place in terms of spectrum. So some of the legacy methods of wireless, whether you're talking about audio, communications, video, it's difficult to squeeze yourself into some of those things. And when you get into a very large event like the Super Bowl or the Indy 500, it's virtually impossible to do everything that you need to do on a standard kind of spectrum, right? Because it's not only, TV that's gobbling things up. You've got everybody from the leagues, from the POS systems that now get, but it's really because of necessity that we're there. And there's a couple of other reasons as well we'll get into.
So start me down and let's just say kind of the first path where you decided, hey, you know what? We're going to proof of concept this. We're going to test it in the wild, and we're going to start to adopt this methodology using private network. What was the thing that you were first trying to solve?
Well, I mean, 5G, and we were talking about this earlier, was that if you were a futurist 5 years ago and you wanted to talk to 5G, it was a dead easy job because you could just say it did everything and you could just fire it up. And at some point, you'd be able to contribute by just, firing something up using public 5G networks, which, there were definitely some things that work quite well on that. Bonded cellular, for instance, LiveView and companies like that. We use that quite a bit. But, that was sort of the first iteration. How can we do that? How can we eliminate kind of costly and complicated wireless systems by just firing things up? So, what happened was that
it is still coming. I just want you to
know. Good.
Okay.
Oh, well, good news, everybody. No, but what happened with the private stuff now, we've bent our thought into a little bit. Say, okay, now you're going to have to bring your own network. Okay, that's fine. One of the use cases that we absolutely had to do, and this was a couple years ago at the Super Bowl, was communications, because we needed to put a private network in to accommodate roughly 500 belt packs. And we couldn't do that by traditional means. So originally the idea was, well, now we can just do this as a distributed kind of thing where all of the cameras just magically come back to a central location through, pure 5G magic. But now it's going to take a little bit more architecture and planning and purpose-built planning.
So when you think about, that's massive, right? You got 500 belt packs running around. And I know even in the last Super Bowl, it was like extraordinary, how much, especially on just the comm side that was out there. But as you start to think about, your different, especially around your different tiers, do you start to think about how do you expand the use cases around the private network to start to care for all the other transport that needs to be part of that production? And how does that change from large to small, to, large, medium, small?
Right. Well, I think that there's a place for private 5G in virtually, everything. There's a vision where, you could bring up a van.
Wait, could you just say that one more time? Because I think I really like that. Steve, just pick that up. It's a place for 5G in everything.
Yeah, right. Well, everything TV wise there, pal. So, you think about, okay, the 3 or 4 camera show that can show up in a van and now you're just firing it up and the cameras land magically. Maybe that's a small use case that you can do just regular transmission. We've done a lot of that stuff with Brian, with you guys, just getting the signal home, which we do. But, on the larger stuff, what happens is that you get communications, telemetry or data, images, and audio. And that could be 4 completely different systems. So that's expensive. Yeah. That weighs a lot, and that's important for things like motorsports. Hopefully we'll get into that a little bit because I think that's really exciting. Yeah. And, it's complicated. So, 5G doesn't care, right? It's just data. So mashing all that stuff together and coming up with a unified stream is something that I'm really interested in, and getting away from some of the proprietary boxes that go and do the purpose-built boxes.
All the bespoke, different,
correct,
pieces that you have. So let's go right to motorsports or anything you want to drift into that's complicated, right? Because I feel when you start to throw things like the data, the communications, the whatever the video looks like, and then there's also the analytics and there's other things that help the story tell. How complicated does that start to get? And in terms of the product that you're actually producing, how much is that now contributing to the quality of the product that you're producing?
Well, one of the goals that we have is that you make something that is incredibly complex technically appear simple on the screen, right? So, if you look at what we did with the Super Bowl and Bourbon Street, hopefully, you'll see that, it just kind of works seamlessly and you don't care whether it's a wireless camera, wireless audio or not. It doesn't matter. So, I think that, that's at the maximum of everything that we do. So I think that, with motorsports is interesting to me because you've got, all these different systems. We just talked about some telemetry and cameras and audio and everything. And some of them contribute greatly to the quality of the broadcast, right? Like right now in IndyCar, we get 1 camera out of the car at a time and it needs to be switched. In NASCAR, it's 2. Yeah. But you've got 5 cameras in the car. It's just you're only going to see and you only get to record, 1 of them. Or 2 of them in NASCAR's case. And, they're all in, 1080p and, we need to get them to HDR, et cetera. So, but there's also other use cases for whatever that stream is that has nothing to do with TV, right? There's the driver communications. There's the telemetry that they use not only for TV, but also back at the, at the pits. Yeah. And all of these systems, all of the race products are on, what I call kind of a weight loss program, right? Because, each one of these systems I've described is its own box and its own transmission system, et cetera. NASCAR is getting a little bit better at that, but private networks bring the possibility of unifying all this stuff into that one stream. So now you're taking and getting better quality out of it, particularly audio. Yeah. So I think that my vision is that this is something that works for everybody. And it's not just a broadcast thing because a lot of times, and I think Verizon knows this quite well, that a single use case in broadcast maybe doesn't pay the bills. Yeah. Maybe we don't want to just pay all that bill. Maybe we want to split it with the NFL. We want to split it with NASCAR, those kind of things. Yeah. So I think that that's also one of the possibilities that is going to make, private networks a necessity, and that we're going to have to work a lot more closely with the sanctioning bodies of the different sports to do things, all together.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and you just think about motorsports, right? And let's go down the NASCAR road for a second. When we've looked at all of this, right? Like how do you capture at 180 miles an hour, 40 cars going through, in front of the grandstand, right? And are you capturing all the right data? But I think you may bring up an interesting point because, okay, I can do an over-shoulder camera inside the car with the driver, see what he's seeing, but I'm also revealing how much oil is, how hot the oil is, how much gas does he have left. I'm actually releasing competitive information into the pit at some point.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's actually one of the problems is that once you start to combine these things that, security and making sure that yes, it's one stream, but, this only goes here and that goes there is vital as well. But maybe it's two streams out of the car and one's officiating, I don't know, but we're going to try to work through this, especially now that Fox has relationships with NASCAR and Indy and MotoGP. We can start to and NHRA for that matter, that we can start to look at things and commonalities that each of these sports, I know what they need for TV. I know what I need for TV, but, try to see, okay, what problems can we solve for them as well using this kind of stuff?
And when you're thinking about, I've got production elements I want to make sure I get cared for, but I also got health and safety. I've got the game integrity. I've got the competitive piece of it. So officiating, game integrity, competitive piece. All of a sudden, you do have so many different players for so many different opportunities and so many different angles.
Well, let's get away even from motorsports, right? Let's talk about, I got a couple of people in the audience here who are big time POV guys, right? And this is, these are the biggest need in sports broadcasting is the increase of access. Right? That's what people want. They want to get, the newer camera angles, that kind of thing, because there's two maxims that I find that I think are related to what we're talking about. Number one, the more you can make something look like a video game, kind of the better, right? And it used to be like, say 25 years, 30 years ago, the video game companies would look at broadcast and make it look like, their games look like broadcast. Now it's the other way around, right? The second maxim that we have is that we are looking to shoot the game, and I say shoot the game, but also with audio and everything else. All of the cameras and all of the collection devices and anything are kind of outside, and we're from the outside shooting in. Now we're looking at from the inside shooting out. Like, you look at an NFL game, like one of the most valuable cameras is camera 15, the Skycam. Why? Because it's there, it's inside. And our dream, I know, and, I've talked to John and Jay over there about, putting cameras, POV cameras in, specific places. Now you're actually on the participants. And we already do this. We've done it for years, hat cams and different things. Maybe not as elegantly as I would like, but we do that with refs and things like, and people like that. Now we start looking at the harder problems, like how can we get a camera into a helmet for football or for baseball? And then if you do that, then that's just one thing. And again, just looking at the whole possibilities, like, okay, well, these guys need to communicate as well, right? And now it's just a separate system. How can we integrate those types of features that can go into a helmet? And we have put cameras in helmets, but maybe not as elegantly as is possible now with private networks.
So tell me, talk a little bit about, because I do see you testing different things on the UFL. And certainly inside that envelope where you're testing a lot of what you're talking about, just describe to me a little bit about, and I think everybody be interested in understanding too about the difference in, how the game is actually, organized, the different, and I go immediately to, audio, right? So today where NFL shuts off the audio to the quarterback at 15 seconds. So if you haven't heard it, You don't know what the play is. But you guys leave like that audio on. Like, so you're doing different things that obviously are great cases for a private network that are changing kind of the game and adding a different dimension to it. So tell me what's the fan experience? How are you guys managing some of that? What's next inside of UFL?
So 4 years ago, we started the USFL, and it was a passion project for, my boss, Eric Shanks. And, what Fox is, what I feel like we're kind of different in is that David Hill, when he founded the company, thought that technology had a big seat at the table in terms of sports storytelling, right? And he did a lot of really amazing things. He did the Fox Box. He did the Yellow Line, although it actually debuted on ESPN for strange reasons. He had the best bad idea out there, which was a glowing puck, and we did those things. But audio was always one of those things that we believed in. And this goes back to what I was saying about access. So, it's one thing we talk about communications. There's another thing to be able to, mic up players so that you can hear what they say. Now, baseball is another a great one where, especially the All-Star game, we had 12 microphones out there with, we had buried in the ground. We had them, all over the place. But then we were able to actually talk with the players while they're on the field. Now, we could do that with the All-Star game, and they do it, we do it regular season too, but, you could even have two players talking to each other, in the, the one's on third, one's out, or two outfielders like we did. It's incredible content. It's
I always
incredible.
love when the batters start or the catchers start and talk shit to the batter. I think
that's it's so good.
That's like the most entertaining part of the sport.
Oh, it's so good, and, and then that illuminates the personality of what's going on. It just makes everything more interesting. Now, it's kind of a pain in the ass though, because okay, now here comes the IFB, here comes the microphone, here comes the belt pack and all this other stuff. And then good God, if you put a camera on it, that's something, else. So simplifying those things and some of the miniaturization that's going on, is helping us say, all right, it's not that bad. You can still play and use these things. Like whether you're a football player and you have a microphone and a camera in your helmet. And we did that up until, I guess, last year. And that's an interesting story because the company that we used for that, was utilizing Wi-Fi. Okay. And that it didn't work. In fact, anything with Wi-Fi in broadcast is something in a category that I call, works well on set day because after that, so it was a bad plan. So this is why, again, we come all the way back to what we're talking about. And we say, yes, I want to have the ease of Wi-Fi and how it works so well when there's nobody in the stands and have the security and speed of these new networks.
The private networks. So, let's pull on that thread just a little bit, right? So ease of operation. I think that most folks, as they start to consider it, a lot of them look at it at the economics first. Right? Sure. If I think about, golf, you guys are making a foray into golf.
Yeah, we're coming back a little bit, but yeah, that's all Live Golf. Yeah. Yeah, we got run out of town, with the USGA, but yeah, we're back with Live Golf.
It's an interesting group. You'll be fine. But there's a cost component that or a cost avoidance, I would say, because we all know how complicated it is to put infrastructure on a golf course.
Yeah.
And so when you start these discussions, I'm assuming a lot of it becomes economically it's an economic opportunity. How quickly does that change from the logistics and economics to, wait, we've got exciting things that we could do here where the economics just go out the door?
They're two diverging paths, right? So if that's the goal in terms of using these networks to save money, that's actually it's a challenge right now. Yeah. And when I'm talking about the 500 belt packs and the Super Bowl, that's a necessity. And I will tell you that was not cheap. And I think that we may be a little ways away from really recognizing any kind of real economic value just yet. I know it's coming, but right now there's a lot of care and feeding that goes into these things. Now, that's true of everything that, it started hard with lots of people, lots of power, lots of gear. I mean, the first time we ever did a 5G test was with, Intel actually. And, they had all their crap. And I remember it was a truckload of gear. And and basically the 5G thing was basically 2 cans and a string, where you've got a transmitter.
That wasn't Verizon.
No. That's not a good slogan, by the way, for a wireless company.
We got 2 cans and a string for you. Unlimited.
And sometimes I wonder, what happened to all this, gear that they had. Cause my God, it was just an exceptional amount of stuff. But, but that's the way it started. That's clearly not the way it is now. So it's going to be scaled downward. You're going to show me a network in the box that we can kind of plunk out and do really easily. We're going to get people trained up in doing this. And that's another whole discussion on how we get people trained up in the field to even know what to do with these things. But, I don't know right now if we start with the economic conversation. We take a look, and right now where private networks are in there, at least with Fox, and I wish I had Brad Cheney is my VP of engineering, and he knows way more than me about all this stuff. But, we use it for transmission, bonded cell for transmission. I mean, and it wouldn't be the first time that, would be more than a few times I've hung a $25 million production truck off of a live view backpack for broadcast. But really it's been in the big shows that we've seen it. And that's kind of true with a lot of things that, you take a look at what the big shows are doing, and then you slice off little bits of it, and that might make it down to scale on the smaller shows. But there's definitely a volume play here,
Yeah, and I will remind you, Brad did ask me to put a chip inside a football, and we were talking about, printed footballs, the kind of they stood up for the NBA, where it almost looked like a honeycomb, because he wanted to see if you could actually follow the ball. That didn't go anywhere. So
well, it's going places now.
Okay.
And, I mean, again, like you mentioned, the UFL is a fantastic testing ground for, what we have to do. And they run on their own now, where when we were the USFL, it was a little harder to tell where Fox stopped and the USFL started, but Scott Harneman and some of the smart people over at UFL and they've got a technology accelerator that they're using. Yes, there are chips and balls now. So I'm not sure what to do with them yet.
Well, it's interesting if you can start to do, and what was great about the basketball, just as an example, is arc, spin, rotation, acceleration, everything that you could measure. And I think they had used it actually as part of a dunk contest. And it was kind of fascinating just to watch, to see the characteristic of it.
Yeah. And I think that, and I think that this could definitely, if you squint, everything can be done over a private, network. And, we're working with a company called Sportable that does the tracking, and they've done this with the CFL and they've done this with Major League Rugby. But what we would like to do is help inform, ball spotting, right? Because there's nothing more random in sports than where a ball is spot. I mean, how can you possibly tell where a ball is under a whole pile of people, right? And we just accept that wherever that's what it is. It's going to now the NFL is rolling out something we've been doing for 4 years, which is, automated first down checking. Now that's after the ball spot. And so once that's there, you can tell very quickly where it is on the field. And you find all kinds of, so you do a LiDAR scan of the field, and then you put the ball down, you hit you touch it on a touch screen, you say, okay, you're quarter inch short, and then you have a graphic that's exactly what the NFL is going to do as well. Okay. And, but if you layer on the ball chip now you can say, okay, it's under this pile of people. I can spot the ball before anybody even gets up.
Right.
But there's other things too. It's like limb tracking, for who's got
it.
Yeah. All that stuff. It's complicated, but I'm actually seeing this being possible now.
So let's go forward on that, right? So we talked a minute about economics and logistics and et cetera. And obviously that's not the use case, right? But then
not yet.
Right. And I think there's a level of maturity.
You guys are going to make it way cheaper. It's going to be cool.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me just gather my thoughts for a second. All right. So, but now beyond that though, where you start to getting into all of these I'll call them just connected devices for a moment, right? That are continuing to help tell a better story, better integration, better production value, et cetera. At what point do you become saturated? At what point is it, okay, that's too much? And I want to go back to also what you said earlier, which when we were talking about football and where games were trying to get to a viewing standard that looked like football, and then they far exceeded, and now, just the production is trying to get to the standard that the game is now produced. So that you get to a point where there's so much stuff. At what point is it full saturation? And then we got to pull back a little bit and get back to the purity of and maybe not.
It's a good question. I think that there's no, kind of mathematical formula to that. It's more of it's a combination of a gut check and checking Twitter, see what people like and what they don't like, which is a pretty decent real-time barometer of
standard. Okay.
But, I think that in terms of, there's a lot of other ways to put content out now as well.
Yeah.
If you came here to NAB 15 years ago, every sign here would say something about the second screen. Okay. Do you remember the second screen? Everything was second screen. Well, turns out it's kind of bullshit, right? Because people had their second screen out, but they weren't watching, they were doing something else.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing was that none of the content on the second screen was really very compelling because it was like, okay, we'll just throw a sky cam up there. You can have that. Oh, we'll, do an ISO of Jim Harbaugh because he's wearing khaki pants, Right. But now through some of these tools that we have, like where it's an in-car, like there's a great product with WBD that they're doing right now with a company called Movi that, does a very compelling in-car broadcast using almost all just automated production, techniques. So the answer to your question is that now there's actually a cutting room floor that can be used to do something else with. And as less, and with all of the other tools that are at your disposal now, you can't throw a rock without hitting something that says AI here, right? So like using AI, those kind of production decisions can be automated so that now you can have a compelling, well thought out broadcast that doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think that there's a lot of room for expansion on this stuff.
Yeah. And listen, I do agree, I'm not going to bring up the AI piece, but AI will start to infiltrate itself, platform decision, what your preferences are and how you want to enjoy the game. All of that just can create
customization is a big buzzword. I'm not 1,000,000% sure how that works. A lot of times, like back in the VR days, right? Like, not like back in the VR days, like 8 years ago, when VR, way back when. Yeah. Not back in the 3D days. That was, 15 years ago, we probably would have been seeing 3D everywhere, right? That went pretty good. But, that they said VR was great because you got to sit in the best seat in the house and you could choose your own cameras. And anybody who said that had never actually tried it because switching your own cameras is really laborious.
Right.
And at some point, my producers and directors get paid money to tell that story. And I think that still stories need to be told. Now, how that's customized, that can be part of that conversation. Like, do you want to use like more of a first person view show, right? Like we'll be able to do that, as soon as we get, the refs and everything, and then you can have a whole different kind of look at this that might be more, applicable by watching on your phone. Yeah, so a variety of different things are gonna, there's a lot of places that you can put this stuff. Yeah.
So I think we have a few minutes left to open it up to, any questions. Josh is standing over there with a mic.
Oldest trick in the book.
You know what? Mike must have got
oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, gentlemen. The discussion is really great stuff. So, question for Michael. So if it is in economics, what are the things that are driving you to look at private networks and, unplugging things? If you can give us a sense of that.
Well, some of it's replacing things that are already wireless. right? Like wireless microphones, cameras, etc. that, right now take a lot of care and feeding in terms of, people coming in with lots of gear and things like that. The other thing, as we mentioned before, is just scale. The fact that spectrum, is not as abundant as it used to be because it's been taken up, the white space as we used to call it. So some of it's just really necessity. And then the other thing is, these kind of weight loss programs that I'm thinking about, whether, it's in a helmet or if it's in a hat or if it's in a motor car, everything wants to be smaller. It wants to take less power and it wants to be, and it also doesn't want to get too hot. We've found that too. But yes, all that stuff, kind of push us in that direction.
Thanks for your question. Anybody else? All right, Mike. One more. Okay. On your other side. There you go.
I was just going to say, is there an opportunity for this type of technology to allow access to, third and fourth level sporting organizations and help lift them up in their profile for whatever they want to be able to do, not just for, money's sake, but, for access to their supporters?
Already doing it, really. I mean, if you think about like bonded cell, right? Like bonded cell is a fantastic technology that has taken the cost out of those kinds of things. At least it can. Multiple cameras, different things, shooting. I remember when we were doing boxing, we did all of our, weigh-ins with 4-camera bonded cell. So it's doing it. And so I think that there's every opportunity that this private network, scheme is going to help that out. And not only sporting leagues, but I mean, high school football and really small events like that, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that, Mike and I are both big fans of Flow Sports.
Yeah.
Right? We like what they're doing. That's an organization who goes down into, I would call it D2, down to
right. Division II wrestling, field hockey, Flow is a really, and they're bootstrap kind of guys. They got to do what they got to do.
And as these tools become more mature, the democratization, the creator of the economy that's out there, all of this influences how these productions are done. And I think you're just going to see better and better quality in places and better productions at better levels that you've never seen before. So we're excited about that.
And one thing I'll just add, Verizon is here, is that, these guys really understand, that type of promise, and they've taken the time to come on site to be with us, to kind of see what the problems are. And we all have honest conversations as to, what can be done now, what needs to wait, and what do we need to develop and see. And I do appreciate that.
Mike, thank you so much. Appreciate having you here, buddy. Please come visit us, Verizon Business Group. We're actually diagonally right from here. You can see us. We are standing up a private network there. You can take a look at what we're doing, a combination of AI, private network, untethered cameras. And really, I think both the way we are focused, the promise of what's going to happen inside sports, especially inside the ball, to capture the game.
Yeah. What's a private network?